Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes together at last. It's the interview that nobody knew was going to happen, but many were excited for, and many others are extremely angry about. And I hate I hate everyone all the time. Look, I don't really care. Tucker interviewed Nick Fuentes, and I say, oh, okay. I wonder what Nick had to say. I wonder what Tucker had to say. There's this world where people in politics demand of you wield power the way they want you to wield it. Tucker Carlson with a large audience can do whatever he wants. Nick Fuentes with a large audience can do whatever he wants. If you disagree with them, you can tell them you disagree with them. If some liberal guy, if Cenk Uygur interviews Harry Sisson, I'm not going to be like, oh, I can't believe he's playing. I don't care. People are going to talk to each other, and certain ideas are going to exist. And the issue now is people are trying to exert authority and power over Tucker Carlson for having Nick Fuentes on. Now, I will be the first to say, you can disagree with Tucker, you can disagree with Nick. That was always allowed. I disagree with both of them on many issues. I think it'll, Tucker and I, he's been on Timcast IRL before. We largely agree on a lot of things. What is this? It's just so weird. There's a new faction emerging, which is like not necessarily left or right, but it's like the right is splitting on the issue of Israel. And there are people that are acting woke over why you have to defend Israel. Like, if Tucker wanted to have on a guy who, I mean, what he had on who, like the premier of Qatar or something, or was it the Emirates? I don't remember. If you want to have on somebody who says a bad thing, that's fine. And I get people telling me, because we're going to have Nick Fuentes on as well, and I get these woke pro-Israel people. I call them woke because I'm doing it derisively to mock the woke right idea. These are people who are trying to exert authority over what you are allowed to talk about and who to interview. And I don't play that game, and I never did. I will have on a communist to espouse his communist views, and we will insult and we will deride wherever we deem necessary. And there are people, Nick will come on, and I will do the exact same to him. That being said, when I had on, Liberal on Friday, I called him a retard. I don't think I will end up calling Nick a retard, because I think Nick is going to be much quicker and wittier on the issues, which is why I may call him something else if I disagree with him. And that was always allowed. And people who like Nick and don't like me can insult me and call me whatever they want. That, too, was always allowed. We got the story from the Daily Mail about the backlash. Tucker Carlson sparks conservative backlash as he hosts his most controversial guest. And apparently now, we've got this tweet I want to pull up from Dinesh D'Souza, he says, I'm posting 2 text exchanges with Charlie Kirk where he calls Nick Fuentes vermin and insists even my debating him and defeating his arguments nevertheless amplifies him. One can only imagine what Charlie would say about Tucker's butt-licking interview with Fuentes. I don't care about any, I'm so over all of this. It's just so silly.
How do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that, John Bolton? I mean, I've known them all. George W. Bush, be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish. Most of them are self-described Christians, and then the Christian Zionists.
On some level, we do need to be exclusive, not inclusive. We do need to be right-wing. We do need to be Christian. We do, on some level, need to be pro-white, not to the exclusion of everybody else, but recognizing that white people have a special heritage here as Americans.
How do you explain?
So this is apparently what everyone's mad about, and you know what? Let me do this. To exemplify the controversy, Dinesh D'Souza has this tweet, and in it, he claims Charlie Kirk said to him, "This was a massive mistake that you did this. He's vermin, and you just gave him one of the biggest boosts of his career." And then he went on to say, "You have no idea the damage you did by talking to him and complimenting him. You are making him even bigger. We've been fighting this guy for 6 years, and you're the first mainstream voice to debate and give him a compliment, which then makes him bigger and more powerful." To which Dinesh responded, "I'm getting a ton of this. As a younger guy myself, was amazing to hear from your experience. Very good points." Okay, I just want to pause real quick. I don't understand that response. Dinesh is not young. Was amazing to hear from your experience. Very good points. I'm just genuinely confused. Now, it says to Charlie Kirk, and some are like, wait a minute. It says to Charlie Kirk. It's because Dinesh likely searched his messages for Charlie Kirk, and then it popped up the old message. He should have just tapped the text thing, and it would have. The first thing I want to say is, holy crap, publishing texts from Charlie is turning into a meme, and it's kind of cringe. It is. Just why? What are you doing? Who are they? What is this? I don't live in your world. I don't want to live in your world. Guys, if you're a fan of Timcast, I'm going to tell you the world I live in. If a thing happens and it's interesting, I'll talk about it. If it's important, I'll talk about it. If a thing is true, I will say it. If a thing is not true, I will call the person out for saying something that's not true. If it is not true and I make a mistake, I'll probably get it wrong. If Nick Fuentes wants to appear on a show because Nick Fuentes gets 50,000+ concurrent viewers on his show every day, he is certainly someone of prominence. He is certainly someone to have a conversation with. Now, I can already hear all of the whinging from the Fuentes fans being like, why would you have Nick on? You know, the weirdest thing to me, there's a guy that I know is like a big Fuentes fan. And I don't know him too well. This is this guy that I've met. And he was like, oh, man, what happened with Nick coming on your show? Like, I was really excited for that. And I was like, it was a scheduling issue. Presumably what happened was we had booked Nick for Tuesday, and that would have meant that Nick would have to fly here, come on the show. Then he would have to fly back home to Chicago, then fly to Tucker in Maine, which is an insane trip. In fact, with leaving on Wednesday and having to do the show with Tucker on Thursday, it would mean that he'd have to fly here, do the show, go to the hotel, wake up in the morning, fly to Maine on Wednesday. And I think the trip on the trip to Maine to get to Tucker is actually not just a simple direct flight. I think it's actually a little bit complicated. And so Nick was like, I have a scheduling conflict. And it is what it is. There was no beef. And we said, you should come back when you want to come back. Now, some are saying, why wouldn't you have Nick on before? We did with Ye. And they all walked out. And then the response is, but why wouldn't you have Nick on outside of that? Because we'd be banned. I'm not lying, and I don't care. And the people who are like, Tim, you should get your whole channel banned so that you can host someone. What? I'm here to talk about what I want to talk about, what I think, what I find important, and host guests periodically. I'm not going to nuke my entire company and fire my entire staff for one guy. I don't blame Nick for the censorship they placed upon him and his show. That being said, as we have continually won back ground and there is less concern over getting banned in the immediate, we said, yeah, let's have Nick on. He's a guy with a lot of opinions. Here's the other issue. The issue was not that Nick was not allowed to come on the show. What I had explicitly stated was we need a relevant news reason for Nick to be. Now, Nick took issue with this. I said, here's the play. If we just bring Nick on randomly and put intense pressure on the show and get ourselves banned, we serve nobody. No one will hear the conversation. There's no point in doing it. And to be like, haha, let's end our career. It makes no sense. We can do it if there is a relevant news reason for which Nick is in the press and in the public, and he has to be talked to and he has to be talked about. Nick took issue with that, and I think had something related to like the censorship being very newsworthy or whatever. That's not the point that I was making. And it does make it hard for him because it's not his fault if he's not relevant to the news because he's being suppressed. My point is it benefits no one if I invite anyone and everyone whenever onto the show, which gets us nuked. I'm not the right I describe as samurai, noble indeed. Actually, I'll put it like this. I described Matt Walsh as a paladin, and I as a rogue. He was on the show, and Matt was like, what's a paladin? It's really funny because he doesn't know what a paladin is. And he's like, what, a paladin? And I said, yeah, a holy warrior, a knight of divine retribution. And he goes, I'm going to take that as a compliment. And I'm like, it is a compliment. I think Matt Walsh is a very straightforward warrior of divine retribution. He is the modern version of what a paladin would be. A Templar knight or whatever, Deus Vult, whatever you want to call it. But that's not the world we live in. I believe if we were 1,000 years ago, Matt Walsh would be screaming, just imagine Matt like just ripped, running full speed with a sword. Rah! Deus Vult. And today, he does his show. He's blunt. He doesn't hold back. Me, I'm more of a rogue. For those that understand Dungeons and Dragons, you get my point. I seek to accomplish my goals, but through strategy, tactics, and sometimes maybe rogue isn't the right way to put it, but the idea is I'm not going to stand at the gates and scream as loud as I can and then just get blasted by a volley of arrows. I'm going to sneak in the back. Matt Walsh is going to stand at the gates with an army and in shining armor. My point is this. If we could effectively have Nick on and have that conversation, we would. Now we can, we will. I have no beef with Nick Fuentes. We defended him when someone tried to murder him. I got to be honest. I don't much care for zealous racists or white supremacists. I know that Nick doesn't largely fit that, though they lie about him the same way as they lie about everybody else. I don't agree with him on Jews and Israel for the most part, based on what I know about him. But I'm willing to bet that he will make points, and I will disagree, as I've made points to many people who I describe as having Israel derangement syndrome. I actually don't disagree with Tucker Carlson on the weird obsession that Christian Zionists have with Israel. I don't care about Israel. Now, the story says, when Tucker asks about how do you explain this Christian Zionist, et cetera, to the controversy, however, Huckabee wrote, wasn't aware that Tucker despises me. I do get that a lot from people. I don't care if you're staunchly pro-Israel, and I don't care if you're vehemently anti-Israel. I will have on any of you. We had on one guy that I called a retard because he couldn't articulate why he cared more about Israel than any other country. My argument is we have given Ukraine more money in 2 years than we've given Israel in 50. And the president of Ukraine is now rumored to be one of the largest landowners. He owns a portion of a country that bought a large swath of land in the U.S. He comes to our country and they wave his nation's flags. And you say to me, Tim, but AIPAC. And I go, agreed. And every other country too. You're allowed to focus on one. I'm not saying you're deranged if you have a particular problem with Israel. You're allowed to. I'm saying I have an issue when the guy comes on my show and claims that the fentanyl crisis in West Virginia is because of Israel. And I'm like, okay, bro. That's why we defended Nick when he said the conspiratard-ish has to stop. Like, heaven forbid, if he's like, Ben Shapiro died, God forbid. Are they going to claim Israel did it? And it was hilarious, and he was correct. The issue I take is that there are people with a political agenda that isn't a strong moral position, that is defense of Israel. So they will get mad at you if you platform someone who is anti-Israel. I get accused of, it's funny, all the people blasting my show claiming I'm a Jew or whatever. It's the creepiest thing, despite being like Israel ambivalent is the way to describe it. Here we go. Other conservative commentators likewise bashed Carlson, with some claiming that Charlie Kirk was a self-described Christian Zionist, and he was always allowed to be. Charlie was great. We disagreed on a lot of things, and he was a good man. Tucker is literally calling Charlie a heretic whom he despised, who also had a mind virus. What is I can't, guys. If you are blind, just like, I don't understand this fervent pro-Israel. You know, like Ben Shapiro is very, very, very pro-Israel. He will articulate his points very well on why he's pro-Israel, and he will do it intelligently. And when you have points to make about Israel, he will concede. He's a great debater, and he has logic behind his positions. So when Ben comes out and defends Israel, you're like, Ben makes some good points. I don't completely agree. Tucker makes his argument, salient points. I say, wow, interesting. He makes good points. I don't completely agree. But then there are some people that are just like rabidly pro or anti. And I'm like, is this the new left and right Israel? A close personal friend of Kirk, Josh Hammer, jumped in the conversation. The great Charlie Kirk is rolling in his grave right now, simply despicable. Kirk was one of the most outspoken supporters for Israel among right-wing evangelical Christian conservative leaders in the U.S. before his passing. It's been a little more than a month after he spoke at Charlie's funeral, and here he is talking with one of America's most prominent and noxious anti-Semites about how much he despises Christian Zionists, wrote conservative legal commentator Will Chamberlain. Tucker should be ashamed. This is a total betrayal. Earlier in the interview, Fuentes shares his backstory with Carlson and explains how he became radicalized as a young college student supporting Trump. Fuentes claimed that conservative radio host Mark Levin, a self-described Zionist, influenced his early views on race. He recalls that during high school, Levin was one of the first conservative commentators who made him think differently about the topic. I listened to him every day in high school. I was a fan, loved his show. And I actually liked how he was kind of obnoxious and mean to his callers. Fuentes told Carlson, I'll never get one show. He goes live and says, America's becoming a majority non-white country. Does anybody think that's a good idea? And I was thinking to myself, yeah, that actually doesn't sound too good. I think a lot of the anti-Fuentes stuff is completely overblown. I think Fuentes has said some nasty things and has some bad opinions. And I'm gonna make sure everybody hears this, because we are going to have him on Timcast IRL. I have had on substantially worse leftists. We have had on leftists who have called for the abortion of babies up to 9 months or even potentially after birth. I do not and will not play stupid games where you're going to tell me you have no problem with the communists we've brought on the culture war debate or Timcast IRL, and then act like Nick Fuentes is the worst person imaginable. It is illegitimate. You are allowed to criticize Nick and say he's got bad ideas, and you absolutely should when he does. I don't watch a lot of what Nick says. I've seen some of his clips, and I've defended some and criticized others. And he will come on the show, and it's not a debate show, nor is it an interview show, which is why people got real mad when we said Nick was invited on the show. Now, I understand why Nick wants to go on Tucker Carlson's podcast. It's a very, very big show. And it wasn't so much that Tucker didn't pull the rug out from under us. There's nothing like that. Nick was, I think Nick went to record with Tucker on the Thursday. He was supposed to come here on Tuesday. But Nick, I guess the decision was it's a heavy lift to do all this travel at once. And so he was going to focus on the, I totally respect it and I totally get it. And Tucker's got a massive show and, do your thing. Nick will be coming on Timcast IRL. I'm excited, actually, to have him on the show, despite many people not liking the man. And I'm going to say it again. Don't come at me and act like I am doing anything wrong. Because here's the show format. We're not an interview show. The show is going to be, we pull up news articles, and he will opine on them the same as any other guest. We afford the same opportunity to Marxists, communists, woke lunatics. So these people who want a communist revolution, who want to give children sex changes, who believe in abortion up to 9 months. Nobody bats an eye when we have these people on. In fact, they say, Tim, you got to have these people on and challenge them. But how dare you then come at me or Tucker or anybody and be like, how dare you host Nick Fuentes? Yeah, whatever. The same as any other despicable person I would host on this show where we would discuss the news. Is this show supposed to be only Zionists, pro-Israel? Is it supposed to be only conservatives, never a leftist? Spare me. Now, the only reason this show, this is a morning show, Timcast IRL, consistently has conservative, moderate voices because they're the ones who they're willing to come on and they ask us to come on, and liberals try to demand money. And I'll be the first to admit to all of you, and you can call me whatever name you want, it is a challenge to navigate the space to have on high-profile, controversial figures like Nick Fuentes. However, in the past year, censorship has been beaten back and shut down. And this means the risk to the business is substantially less now, and it's much easier to ask Nick to come on the show. And then I'm going to hear it from everybody. You mean that you wouldn't host Nick because of fear of the left and the political machine? Yep, no problem saying that. I'm not here to lie to you. And nobody's stupid. There's as if people are like, Tim just won't host Nick because I've talked about this the whole time. 3 years ago, I said, guys, we have to have an opportunity to bring Nick on when it's particularly news relevant because they'll just ban the episode. They banned our Alex Jones Rogan episode for 3 years and only recently got released. Wake up to the realities of the world that we live in. There have been tremendous gains in the culture war. The Overton window has shifted. And now there is tremendously less risk and more opportunity for Nick to appear on shows, and he's maintained his audience the whole time. We're not having him on the show because we've won the censorship, and there were difficulties in having him on because they would just ban us the way they banned two of our Alex Jones episodes got banned outright, and we knew it. But Nick was, and I'm not blaming him for this, but they will shut you down and ban you. That's a reality. And you know what? Nick and I will talk about it if he wants to. But what are you telling me to do? Hey, Tim, get your show banned outright. Never do another episode again so that you can try one time to have Nick on. How are we serving anybody and calling out the lies of the corporate press and the mainstream media if we're doing that? And then I've had people come to me and say, so you wouldn't do a show on like vaccines? Guy, listen, when the vaccine stuff was going on, we challenged them to the greatest degree. And my position is, as it always been, talk to your doctor. I don't know. No one should be forced to take it. But what is the argument? Say something and get banned? Why? It makes literally no sense. I am not these conservatives who are like, I will stand at the gates and raise my fist and be destroyed in a volley of arrows. It makes literally no sense. Do you want to win or not? Okay, that means there has to be tact and strategy. You don't march head forward in a field of your enemies knowing you'll be wiped out. That makes no sense. Call it whatever you want. But we are going to keep fighting the good fight, and we'll do what we want. And the backlash, I think, is just stupid. Smash the like button, share the show, stay tuned. More to come. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all in the next segment.